I did. About 90 seconds. Excellent. So everybody jump back so that you're looking at the screen really quickly. Jason is watching videos. Log. Okay. So some of us still need to submit our Unit 9 exams. Let's see. Ayana, Sade, you're both here with me today. Anybody else on the call? Monet, I don't think you submitted yours. Chandler, as of this morning, you had not submitted your Unit 9 exam. So we need to come up with a plan to make sure we do that, guys. This is going to be one of our 4 remaining formal grades, 4 or 5 remaining formal grades. So you don't want to have this as a 50 in your grade book. That said, I need you to take it. So happy to come up with a plan, whether it be during hawk time, before school, after school, plenty of opportunities to take it, but let's not forget about that, okay? So I'm gonna keep reminding you as much as I can. It's on SchoolNet, but you're not doing it right now. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the Nearpod presentation. This is what I was looking forward to doing. So you can go to join.nearpod.com and enter the code 462NJ, or you can just click on the link that I just sent to the chat. 462NJ, as in New Jersey. Neftali, I need you to join the Nearpod for me. You can just click on that link that's in the chat. Thank you. I see Gloria has done it. Thank you, Sade, for jumping into the chat so you can click on the link. Do it one more time. It's my Nearpod. Or you can go to join.nearpod.com and enter the code 462NJ, as in New Jersey. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Brianna. Thank you, Breon. Thank you, Fraylin Master. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Ayana and Monet and Jason. We've got 8 folks waiting on, did I say Ardesia? There's Ardesia. Did I say Sade? There's Sade. Happy, thank you. Looks like we're waiting on Neftali. You're the only one left, Neftali. While you finish that, Neftali, while you get joined in, I'm going to remind you all or introduce you all to the topic of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, AAPI Heritage Month. So we've talked about a lot of Heritage Months at this point. We did Hispanic Heritage Month between September 15th and October 15th. We talked about Black History Month a little bit in February, Women's History Month in March. Now we've got AAPI Heritage Month in May. It's also Mental Health Awareness Month, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And I know you all probably have your own journeys with mental health, but I think it's important that we acknowledge the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities and Native Hawaiians. That's another part of it. So just a little bit of background about this specific Heritage Month. It was formerly known as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Now we really use the term Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. I'm not exactly sure why we made that change in language. Sometimes you do see a long acronym, AANHPI, Asian American, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. But apparently we're going with Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. I guess Pacific American really does include the Native Hawaiians and the Pacific Islanders as well. So a little bit more succinct. We celebrate during the month of May to recognize the contributions of Asian Americans to US society. It was originally just like Women's History Month. It started off, and just like Black History Month, it started off as a week-long period of celebration and recognition. And it was actually during the first 10 days of May. This was signed into law in 1979 by President Jimmy Carter. It was chosen as the first 10 days of May to recognize two events. Number one, on May 7th, 1843, the first Japanese immigrant arrived in the United States. Number two, on May 10th, 1869, what's known as the Golden Spike was driven into the first transcontinental railroad. This was a huge effort to connect the eastern part of the United States to the western parts of the United States by railroad. So this just greatly increased the amount of travel that could be done, not only commercially, not only by people like you and I, but also by shipping trains from cities like New York and Boston and Chicago to cities like Los Angeles and Phoenix and Las Vegas. Most of the work that was being done on the west coast of the country was being done by Chinese immigrants. And unfortunately, they were not a part of this ceremony that drove this golden spike into the railroad. So we do choose to recognize them and the fact that they were excluded from that culminating event by celebrating May 10th during this month. It was extended to be a month-long celebration by President George H.W. Bush. So that's the father of the first president you all had when you were first born in 1990. This month is especially important that we recognize and celebrate Asian Pacific American Heritage Month because of some of the discrimination and violence that has been enacted against the AAPI communities. So between March 19th, 2020, which if we think about it in context was really the beginning of this global pandemic, especially the beginning of its impacts here in the United States. So between March 19th of last year and February 28th of this year, there were 3,795 incidents of discrimination reported to an organization called Stop AAPI Hate. So that's more than 10 incidents a day. That's a lot of discrimination, a lot of hatred, a lot of, in some cases, violence. 68.1% of those reported cases were verbal harassment. So people being called names, people being yelled at unnecessarily, people being questioned unnecessarily. 20.5% were cases of shunning. So that's a case when people might choose to leave a space because there are Asian Americans there, or they might distance themselves from Asian Americans. Why do we think this has happened so much in the last year? Why do we think this has happened so much in the last year? There's been so much discrimination against the Asian American community. What's that? Exactly. Thank you, Ayana. They're being blamed unfairly and infactually for the pandemic because it's known as the coronavirus. We know now that it did originate in a place called Wuhan, China, but the people who are living here had nothing to do with that. We know that the Chinese government, based on our factual research, did not start the pandemic. It was what we consider a zoological or a zoogenic disease, meaning it came from an animal. So to blame human beings who have maybe been born here in the United States, have never even been to China, or might not even be Chinese for this pandemic is just totally wrong. Unfortunately, 11.1% of these incidents of discrimination did result in physical assaults. So we've seen some videos now of some elderly Asian Americans being thrown to the ground, being shoved, being spat upon. And of course, this is just not right. This is tragic, and this is obviously counter to what we should all stand for. We know that the communities that reported discrimination have been diverse, but there have been disproportionate impacts. So we know that women have been much more likely to report incidents of discrimination. That does not necessarily mean that they are experiencing more, although it probably does, but they are at least reporting more hate incidents than men. We know that young people have reported a lot more incidents of discrimination and hate. 12.6% of all incidents have been reported by people who are younger than 18 years old. So what this means is that it could mean two things. Maybe the young people are experiencing a lot more discrimination, or maybe they're just more likely to report it because they have more awareness of this database, the Stop AAPI database. Maybe they're using the internet more. Maybe they're just more comfortable talking about the things that they've experienced. Maybe older people are more likely to just brush it off and let it go. And then lastly, unfortunately, the vast majority of people who have reported hate incidences have been of Chinese descent. 42.2% have been Chinese. Koreans are the second largest group, followed by the Vietnamese and Filipinos. All right, so again, this month it's important that we recognize the positive contributions to our society made by Asian Americans because they have experienced over this last year a frightening amount of discrimination and violence. This is nothing new, though. We know that they've experienced state-sanctioned violence here in the United States for their entire existence. We know that laws were enacted to prevent large numbers of Asian American people from immigrating to the United States. Specific communities of Japanese Americans were placed into internment camps during, shortly or during World War II. So, this is not new. We know that these feelings of hatred have harbored here in the United States for a long time, but over the last year, things have heightened because of the reason that Ayana mentioned earlier, the fact that the pandemic has been, we've shifted blame to those communities during the pandemic, which is not right. Okay, so I just want to mention that we will continue to talk about some of the contributions of Asian Americans, but what I want to know from you all now, this very first Collaborate board, and this is to wake some of you up. Let's wake up. Let's get engaged here. We've got people looking at their phones, people laughing and sleeping, people who look like they might have done something they shouldn't have done this morning. But we need to get locked in and make sure that we are paying as much attention and staying engaged as possible. So on this first Collaborate board, what I want you all to do is answer this question. What contributions from Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders to American society can you think of? So let's be quick. Naftali, give me something. Sade, give me something. What contributions are you aware of? It doesn't have to be scientific. Maybe it's just cultural. Maybe you can think of an actor or an actress, or maybe your favorite sports player. Maybe you play a video game that you know came from an Asian country or was made by an Asian American person. So what influences have they had on American society? Chinese food, good. We know that Chinese cuisine is a big deal here in the United States and long has been. Good, so this is a cultural thing. Thank you, Brianna. You cite the same thing as Brian. Ardeja, yours is similar to salt. I don't know. Salt, I'm sure salt would have existed without them, but thank you. What does that mean, Alex? Okay, yeah. Ramen, yeah. Got you. Native American, okay. What do you mean by that, Ayana? Okay. Okay, good. So that's a form of discrimination in some ways, yeah. What else? How else have they contributed to society? Think about cars. Does anybody have a car here? Okay, maybe not everything, but a lot. That's true. You can include that. You can include that. What'd you say? Casinos. We're not talking about Native Americans, folks. We're talking about Asian Americans. Native Americans do own a large percentage of casinos because of the tax purposes. Clothes, give me an example. Anime, thank you, Fraylin. That's a big one, culturally. All right, we'll move on. It seems like you got to put your thinking caps on today, all right? We're gonna have a long lesson. I'm asking you a lot of questions. I wanna get off to a good start. You probably are aware of a lot more, you're just not saying it. All right, so let's keep going. All right, quick reminder, the EOC exam is quickly approaching. In this class, it will be on Tuesday, May 25th. I talked about that yesterday. Make sure it's on your calendars. You all probably will be able to get transportation here to school. Everybody will need to be in person. So those of you who are at home and have been learning at home for the entire school year, you will come to school on these days. Unfortunately, final exams can only be administered in person. We cannot do virtual online final exams. So everybody needs to be here 6:45 Tuesday morning, May 25th. That's the normal start time. All right, quick poll. If the EOC exam were tomorrow, what do you think you would score? Jason, stay with us. You should be in the near pod. Jason, if you can hear me. Naftali, you should be in the near pod. You shouldn't be looking at Google. $10 seconds, less than 10 seconds. Let's get some answers. There's no reason why you shouldn't participate. I'm gonna throw this in. I'm gonna look at the report of this Nearpod at the end of class. Whoever has participated 100% of the time will get 10 formal points added to their Unit 9 test. Some of you need that. Yeah, that's fine, you can use your phone. All right, so I'm gonna share this with you all. So, okay. We've got, looks like only a few. Did anybody say 5? One person said 5. We've got some 4s, 3s, and we've got some 1s. Thank you for being honest. So regardless of what your answer is, here's my thing. Everybody has room for improvement. I know we can all be at 4s and 5s, but as of today, we will not all be at 4s and 5s. We still have work to do to get there. All right, so whatever it looks like for you, you need to be honest with yourself. Do you need tutoring services? Do you need to make sure that you get your missing work done? Do you need to look up some YouTube videos? What does it look like for you to get some added help over these next 3 weeks? Today is the 3-week mark. 3 weeks from today, you all will be done with biology. I know that feels good. That's 21 days away. We still have a lot that we need to go ahead and get done between now and then. As you all will see, in today's lesson and going forward, we are doing a lot of reviews. So take a look at this calendar, which should be on your screen now. Is it? Yes. This is the pacing calendar that myself and the other 2 biology teachers have been using. Today is May 4th, so you can see where we are in the pacing calendar. We'll be done with, we had to shift everything back 1 day, so we'll be done with Unit 10 a week from today on Tuesday, May 11th. From that point forward, until you all have your EOC exam on the 25th, we're just doing EOC review. We're gonna take a mock EOC exam. The way that's gonna work, let's say you've got a test average of 65 right now. If you come in and you rock out on the mock EOC and you get an 80%, I will put in an 80% for all of your test scores from this unit or from this semester. Okay, so that will automatically increase your grades substantially. So you want to come in to that mock EOC with the right mindset, ready to rock it out. And we're going to use that as an opportunity to practice for the actual thing on May 25th. All right, but you see we've got 9 days built into the calendar specifically. It's really going to be about 7 because the 21st is going to be a testing day for people who need to make up exams from the fall semester. And then the 11th is going to be our Unit 10 exam. So we've got 7 days built into this calendar specifically for EOC review. That's plenty of time. We're gonna go over a lot of material. I'm gonna give you all a physical packet that you can write in and take notes in and that you can actually flip back through, because I noticed that some of you don't take notes all that well. But I'm gonna give you a physical packet that you can use as a study guide. So again, going back to that poll that we just took, Wherever you are does not need to be where you finished. If you said, I'm at a 3 right now, I'm pretty sure I would get a 3 if the test were tomorrow, then that means by this time next week, maybe you should feel more confident about a 4. This time 2 weeks from today, maybe you'll feel more confident about a potential 5. Let's keep working. Let's keep getting better. So the title of today's lesson is Review of the Characteristics of Life. I would have a notebook out. I see some of you have your notebooks out, but you might not be ready to go. We're not necessarily going to be saying anything new today or for most of Unit 10. It's largely going to be review of concepts that we've gone over. So this is an opportunity to add to your notes. This is an opportunity to improve your notes. The objective today is to analyze the survival and reproductive success of organisms in terms of behavioral, structural, and reproductive adaptations. This is basically what we're going to be doing for the rest of the unit. This is our only standard from Unit 10. So you're going to see the same objective. The essential question today, how can we relate STERNGRR? Does anybody remember STERNGRR? You remember the word STERNGRR, right? Okay. So how can we relate STERNGRR to all of the concepts we've learned since Unit 0? Way back January 4th when we first got to school, how can we relate everything we've talked about since then to that original concept, which is the concept of STERNGRR? That's what we're going to talk about. I love that I see Gloria has pen or a paper out, pencil in hand. Yes, sir. A what? A pen? Can you pass this to Breon Naftali? Thank you. Excellent. I see several of you have pens and papers ready to go. All right. So again, you don't have to write everything down here. Write whatever you feel like you need to get in this lesson that maybe you haven't written anywhere else in your notes. This lesson is going to include a lot of questions. So I want you guys to be thinking a lot. Put your thinking caps on. Again, if you participate 100% of the time, I'm going to go back and look at the reports. Whoever does that is getting 10 extra points added, formal points to their Unit 9 exam. All right, so let's make sure we're participating today, Naftali. All living organisms on Earth share some qualities. But of course, we know that those organisms are also quite diverse and strange. Coral is an animal, but it's an animal that looks basically unlike every other animal. Giraffes are animals that look basically unlike every other animal. Human beings are animals that are clearly quite different than most other animals. So while we have these similarities, we also have to be aware of the differences as well. 4 of the most important similarities, bless you, Ardesia, are that all living things are made of a cell or of many cells. The cell is the basic unit of life. All living things use nucleic acids to store genetic information. All living things make various proteins through the process of protein synthesis. And all living things are related by some distant ancestor. So again, we don't need to write everything down. This is one of those lessons where you're going to practice your note-taking skills, practice summarizing and paraphrasing. We don't need everything on this slide. Just whatever you need to get that perhaps you didn't get earlier on in the year. I know some of you joined the class later as well. Okay. You really don't need to write everything down. Trust me. Okay. So, however, even though they have these similarities, they are still doing STERNGRR in unique ways. So what is STERNGRR? What do we remember about STERNGRR? That's what we're going to jump into. In this very first activity, it's a matching activity. You'll have 2 minutes You need to find the correct match for all 8 STERNGRR processes. So match the STERNGRR process to its definition. 2 minutes to do that. I want to see everybody participating. This might be kind of difficult on a phone, Brian. Bless you. What? Everybody's Chromebook is dying. Well, luckily we've got a lot of people who are charging. Maybe they can. I'll say it again. It's super important that you guys come to school when it's the final exam with your Chromebooks charged. That's very, very important. What's that? Charge without finishing? Oh, try. It's not showing you. Oh, there are 2 Brians. 8. No, 14, I'm sorry. Excellent job. 10 seconds, 10 seconds. Brian's got the high score technically. It only took him 14 tries to get all 8. Cool. So some of us clearly need to brush up on our definitions of these STERNGRR processes, and that's fine. That's what we're going to do today. Alex actually just beat the high score. Jason beat the high score, 11 tries. Alex, great job though, 12 tries. Brian, good, 14. Abraham, good, 18 tries. All right, let's go ahead and look at some of these definitions. So here they are. We are going to go over them one by one. So if you want to get this definition of synthesis, that might be a good idea. Naftali, are you participating? Synthesis is the use of small things to make bigger things. It's going to be on the next slide too, so I'm about to advance. It'll be on a slide coming up. Huh? Can you use somebody else's? Which one do you need? The circular one? Here. See, I'm a problem solver. You all bring problems to the table. I solve problems. All right. So what are some examples of synthesis? What are some examples that you all can think of taking small things and using them to build larger things? Now, I want you to try to think of some examples we've talked about in class. So what examples can you think about of us taking a smaller substance and using it to build a larger substance? Maybe you can remember a monomer. Maybe you can remember a specific process. What are some examples though? Population growth, okay. Thank you, Ayana. Gloria, can you give me an example? Can you give me an example? CO2, okay. Farms. Thank you. That's a big one I was looking for, Brian. Everybody should like Brian's comment right there. Photosynthesis. That was a good one. We're going to talk more about photosynthesis. Bees expanding. Okay, I like that too. So we've got some biology. All right, so we got some examples of synthesis. Let's keep going. So there's that definition. I told you it was going to come back up, Fraylin. Synthesis is the use of small things to make bigger things. So here we've got two examples. And at the bottom it says organisms link together monomers to make polymers. A monomer is just a singular unit of something. A polymer, on the other hand, is made up of many smaller units. So if we take several monomers and we link them together, now we've created a polymer. A monomer is just a singular unit. We've got two examples on this screen. They have the same monomers involved, right? We can see that. In both examples, we're linking them together and we're creating two polymers. There's polymer 1 on the left, which is circle, triangle, circle, square. Polymer 2 on the right is triangle, square, circle, circle. They're made of the same monomers, but they're different. Even though they are made up of the same monomers, they are different. Why is that? Somebody can come off of mute, or for my people who are here in person, you all can just tell me. Even though they're made out of the same monomers, these two polymers are different. Why is that? Excellent. Thank you, Ayana. They have a different pattern. They have a different sequence. So circle, triangle, circle, square is not the same thing as triangle, square, circle, circle. That is super important to know. We know that we've had this theme in biology. Hopefully you all remember it. It's the theme of structure determines function. So if I change the way something is shaped, or if I change the sequence or the pattern that it's in, then I change what it is. So even though these two things are made up of the exact same thing, they are not the same thing. That's important to remember. All right. This is now going to be a 4-question quiz. Again, you'll have 2 minutes. 4 questions, 2 minutes. These questions will be all about the 4 organic molecules. So I'm going to go ahead and start the activity. Natalia, I want you to participate so you can get some points. Add it back. 4 questions in 2 minutes. Thirty seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. We've got several folks who have 4 out of 4. Five, 4, 3, 2. Okay, congrats. So here are the results. We're looking at Breon, 4 out of 4. Wonderful job, Breon. We're looking at Gloria and Fraylin, 4 out of 4. Excellent job. Ayana, 4 out of 4. Excellent job, guys. Great, great, great. We had, I was gonna say Sade and Jason, 3 out of 4. Good, I'll take it, I'll take it. All right. So yeah, these are the results. Do we need to go over any of the questions? Be honest. The last one? Okay. So which statements explain the primary difference? Can you all see the question, or do I need to close it? Huh? Wait, what? I can pull it up. How do I do that? Let's see. Unshare. If I unshare and then I click on 4. Is it visible now? Okay, you might have to, can you switch tabs back to? All right, which statements explain the primary difference between the structure? Yeah, go to the Google Meets tab. Which statements best explain the primary difference between the structure of a nucleic acid and the structure of a protein? Okay. Again, this really just kind of tests your knowledge of do you know the monomers that are involved. Yeah, that's basically it. I'm not sure how else to explain it. Nucleotides link together to form a nucleic acid. Amino acids link together to form a protein. That's a true statement. The other ones kind of sound like they might be, they have some correct aspects or facets to them, but they're not totally true statements. So, for example, in answer choice A, it says a protein has alternating peptides. We haven't even really talked about, a peptide is basically just the bond that links the amino acids together. They're not alternating in any way. Answer choice B, nitrogen bases form the backbone of a nucleic acid. Again, we've got a good phrase there, the backbone, we have talked about that, but it's actually the sugar and the phosphate that form the backbone. So not a true statement. The only one that's actually true, everything from start to finish is correct, is answer choice D. So sometimes with one of those, that's one of the trickier ones, because the other incorrect answers do have some correct aspects to them. Again, you got to be on your toes. Process of elimination. Use your brain dump. Use your brain dump. And sometimes, have you guys ever heard the acronym KISS? K-I-S-S. What does that stand for? Keep it simple, stupid. Sometimes you just need to keep it simple. They threw in some other phrases here, backbone, peptides, things that we've talked about, but keep it simple. Answer choice D. Nucleotides link together to form a nucleic acid. Simple. And it's correct. All right. This is one that you might want to take a picture of. This is a throwback to Unit 1. I'm not going to give you enough time to write this whole thing down. We did show this a long, long time ago. So if you've been good about taking notes all semester, this is probably way back in your notebook if you can find it. But you might want to take a picture of this slide. Wink, wink. This is a great slide to have, to reference. So we've got the 4 biological compounds. We can see their monomers. We see the elements that make each of the compounds up. We've got a column for function as well that tell you what the compounds do. And then we've got some examples. If you can remember this, you're going to be better off for about, I'd say, at least 10% of the exam. This is going to constitute about 10% of the exam. So if you can remember this, you're in a good spot. Any questions about this chart, this table? All right. Phone addiction is real. My. Okay, moving on. Transport. Transport is the internal movement of substances. Internal. Phone addiction is real. I'm checking my emails. I'm checking my emails for school. I'm on Snapchat. I haven't used Snapchat in 3 years. All right. So again, you're going to see this slide come up a lot. Now I want some examples. What are some examples of transport? What are some examples of the... Yeah. Okay, crisis averted. What are some examples of the internal movement of substances? What can you guys remember from things that we've talked about in class about how things move? Or examples of things that move? Yeah, that's a good example. We use ATP to move substances. Wonderful, thank you, Ayana. What do you mean by that, Sade? what is that? Can we get it? Can we think of any other examples? I know it feels like a long semester. We're 4 months into this thing. Can we think of anything else? All right, let's talk about some. So again, transport is the internal movement of substances. Organisms have to move things within their cells and also between cells. They have to be able to communicate with one another by moving things between cells. Our bodies use what are called hormones to do that. That's a good example of transport. Okay, this is a 4-question quiz, 2 minutes. This one is going to be about cellular adaptations. So this is something we haven't talked about in a minute. 2 minutes, 4 questions, 3, 2, 1.
I'd be good in a 10 before.
To the last one? Oh, yeah. What's phototaxis? It means movement in response to light. I want to make sure everybody's participating. Folks at home, don't start to drop off now. Monet, where are we? Kathy, Abraham. Let's make sure we're staying true. 1 minute, 1 minute left. That's a great question that we got from Ayana. I'm going to bring that up to the rest of the class. Sade, you can't wait 30 seconds to finish this quiz before you. So it looks like we struggled a little bit more with this one. 15 seconds left, 15 seconds. 10, 5. All right, sharing the results. Excellent job, Alex, 4 out of 4. Sade, it looks like you may have gotten 4 out of 4 if you've done the 4th one, but you chose to look at your phone, but that's none of my business. Okay, it looks like we struggled a little bit here. Let's go over a couple of these. So the very first question, which explains how euglena move toward light? So this word, and the question came from Ayana, what does phototaxis mean? Phototaxis, this could be something good to write down. We've got notebooks out for a reason, right? So if you got this one wrong, this might be something you write down. Phototaxis means movement in response to light. Movement in response to light. So positive phototaxis, what do you think is the difference between positive and negative phototaxis? What's that? Can't hear you. Okay, yeah. So positive phototaxis is movement towards light. So this is when something sees or senses light and wants to move closer to it. We can think about a moth. If you've ever, been outside and you see moths flocking towards sources of light. And then negative phototaxis is the opposite. You sense light and you want to move away from it. So you can think about a cockroach. Hopefully you guys have never seen cockroaches, but I see them all the time in the 400 building. And if I walk in and the building is dark and I turn the light on, I see them scurry away because they sense the light and they don't want to be near it. Okay, so that's negative phototaxis. So moving toward the light, that's what the question asked, that would be positive. How do euglyna and sperm cells use flagella? Flagella are like those long tail, like whip-like tails that specific cells have, and they use those tails to move. So it's called locomotion. Good. What role does an eye spot play in a single-celled organism? I come back to that acronym, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. So we should think about the fact that an eye spot literally sounds like something that should be able to see, or it should be able to detect light, and that's exactly what it does. And number 4, how do contractile vacuoles help organisms survive? So again, this is kind of a throwback. Let's just go ahead and look at this next slide. This might be another one to take a picture of. This is something we have seen. I literally copied and pasted this chart from Unit 2 when we first talked about these cellular adaptations. We talked about 5 of them. The contractile vacuole is number 5 down there at the bottom. It's literally meant to store water and to contract, to squeeze it out if necessary, to pump that water out. It takes energy, just like Ayana brought up. It takes ATP to pump something. But these are those 5 cellular adaptations that we don't want to forget. So if you're on your phone, maybe you take a screenshot. If you are looking at a laptop, maybe you take your phone out and you take a picture, or you can take screenshots on your computer too. But I think it might be a good idea to get some of this information stored. We've got people watching Warzone videos and texting, looking at Instagram and Snapchat apparently. Okay, the next word. We might not make it through all of STERNGRR, but excretion. Excretion is the removal of non-essential nutrients and other types of waste. So you know what slide is coming next. I want an example. I want some examples of excretion. Things that we've actually talked about in class. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, so what are some examples of the removal of non-essential nutrients and wastes that we've talked about in this class? What can we think of? What are some examples of the removal of non-essential nutrients and wastes? Some examples of non-essential nutrients and waste. Yes, when humans use the bathroom, we are literally getting rid of waste products. That's a good example. Can we think of anything else that we've talked about in biology this semester? Yeah, that's a great example, Ayana. When plants release oxygen. So plants release oxygen as a part of what process? Photosynthesis, good. So it's actually a waste product that they release, but then of course, they also use oxygen, just like every other organism, to do respiration. Good, Alex, that could be a good example. So the contractile vacuole that we just talked about is meant to squeeze water out. That's a good example. That works. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. So again, if you didn't finish writing down the definition of excretion, there it is at the top of the slide. Ayana brought this up, so it was a great mention. Thank you, Ayana. When autotrophs do photosynthesis, they release oxygen gas as a waste product. What is an autotroph? What is that word? An autotroph is a producer, and what exactly does that mean? What are they producing? They have to make their own food. They produce their own food. Excellent, Sade. And then all organisms have to do respiration. Some of them use oxygen, some of them don't. We'll talk about that. But when organisms do respiration, they release carbon dioxide gas as a waste product. So when you and I breathe, when you breathe out, you're actually breathing carbon dioxide gas out. And when you breathe in, you're taking in oxygen gas. Okay, so it's a great cycle that exists in nature. The plants produce oxygen that everybody else needs to do respiration, and then we give them back carbon dioxide that they can use to do photosynthesis. So we've got a great cycle going on in nature. Another question, look at the image on your screen. There's a green thing at the top. What is that called? What'd you say? That is a chloroplast, good. And chloroplasts are organelles that are meant specifically to do photosynthesis. All right, we'll come back to that. Just more review. Okay, so this is a question, an open-ended question. I'm giving you 90 seconds to answer it. Put your thinking caps on. You may remember that forests are referred to as carbon sinks. Why do we refer to them in this way? Why do we refer to forests as carbon sinks? I'd love to get some answers from you all on that one. Okay, about 30 seconds, 30 seconds. I've got answers from Sade, Jason, Ardesia, Braylon, and Alex. And now Breon. All right. Let's see. This is a simple answer. I'm going to share Sade's answer really quickly. Sade said because the trees take in carbon dioxide. Why do they take in a lot of carbon dioxide? What process is that called? Not respiration. I'm going to share Ayana's. I just want to change one word in Ayana's response. So she says because they release carbon. They're not releasing carbon during photosynthesis. They're releasing oxygen. They're taking in carbon. So that's why we call them carbon sinks, because they're taking all this carbon dioxide and they're taking it in. It's storing it in. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Sade. And thank you, Ayana, as well. Thank you, Breon, as well. So, and it's not just trees, okay? So it's everything that's green that you can see outside. Even a single blade of grass is going to take in carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Allergies. Oh yeah, definitely algae. They're a big carbon sink. Good, so next, regulation. We've got 8 minutes left. We probably won't get through all of these, but regulation, we'll just keep going. Regulation is the maintenance of an internal balance. Regulation is the maintenance of an internal balance. I'm going to keep going, Brian, but it'll come up again. The definition, it's gonna come up again. It's going to come up again. All right, so what are some examples of regulation that we can think of? This is a big one. This is from Unit 4 when we talked about, well, I'll let you guys maybe mention it, but what are some examples of how organisms maintain an internal balance? Think back to Unit 4. Sweating is a great example. Thank you, Alex. And Braylon, yours is basically the same thing, body temperature, maintaining body temperature. You got to sweat to do that. Good job. Anything else? Any other examples we can recall? No? Got people who are doodling, people who are talking, people who are on their phones. Go, go, go. What'd you say, Ayana? pH balance. That's a great one. Yeah. I'll type that in here for you. You got to be able to maintain pH balance. That's good. Hygiene, yeah. Okay, 5 minutes. So what are we looking at here? What's that a picture of? Okay. I don't want to say it. Somebody's got to know. No. It's a, I'll give you this hint. It's not the cell wall, but the cell membrane. Good, good, good. And at the bottom, it tells you what the cell membrane does. It controls what substances can go in and what can go out, how often they go in and how often they go out, and how much of them can come and go as well. So the cell membrane is hugely important in terms of the maintenance of an internal balance. Hugely, hugely important. The cell membrane is made up of what's called a phospholipid bilayer. Phospholipid bilayer. All right. You don't need to write this down. Maybe this is something you take a picture of, though. A phospholipid bilayer just means that it's made up of 2 layers of lipids. Sade, you want to grab a picture of this? The cell membrane is flexible and fluid. So that means it kind of flows. It's not so fluid that it can burst at any given time, but it's not so rigid that things can't move about within it. So it's flexible, it's fluid. It's also a mosaic because it has a lot of things that are embedded inside of it, and it is selectively permeable. So it only lets certain things in and out. Not everything can come and go as they please. Okay. We've got another quiz, 2 minutes. I guess this might be our last one that we get through. 2 minutes, 4 questions. This one is about active transport and homeostasis. 2 minutes, Braylon, Gloria. Neftali, 2 minutes on the quiz, 4 questions. Finish strong, finish strong. 30 seconds, 30 seconds. Five seconds. Okay, great job, Fraylin, 4 out of 4. Let's see. Good job, Brianna, 3 out of 4. All right, so we still have a little bit more to go over. We're virtual tomorrow. Tomorrow's the last virtual day, so I will talk to you all then. Good job. Good job today. You got 1. Oh, I didn't hear you say that.